Hello Internet, I'm Elliot the Purple Hair Doofus and welcome to Buddy Reads, where I read a small selection of a book and review it for you. Today we are covering chapters 9 and 10 of Artemis by Andy Weir. I hope you've read up to that point because I do not want to ruin anything for you. No, really, I'm going to cover a lot of spoilers for this book, so I really hope that you've read up to that point because I do not want to ruin it for you. So the section starts off with Jazz walking into the hotel room and the guy lunging at her with a knife. She immediately takes her purse, puts it at her throat where she believes the knife will go, and luckily it does. Pierces the purse, slices it in half, but gives her an opening to fight off the guy and toss him out of the hotel room and lock the door behind him. He starts banging on the door. Bang, 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 and she's like, no, I won't let you in, it's a metal door, la 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 la. She calls down to the front desk and says, there's this angry man outside my door. Can someone please stop him from banging on my door? He's scaring me, oh dear my. Security comes up and they stop the guy and he's like, oh, I'll go, and he still has a knife in his hand. Security asks Jazz if she's okay. She's like, yeah, I'm fine. And she says, aren't you going to follow that guy, track him down at all? And they say, well, he had a knife, so no. Isn't that what security is supposed to do? Chase a guy with a knife? Stop the bad guy with the weapon? They leave her alone in the room and she has plenty of time to look around. Turns out that Jin Chu is very rich, lives in a very nice hotel room, and she's looking around at all this rich stuff and she's just like, oh, all that money that I'm missing out on now that Trond is dead. I mean, I could have had all of this if everything had gone well, but now he's dead. Well, better get to work. And she goes to a safe. And she's like, these safes are usually left open, but it's closed and it's locked. So I better find out what's inside. She does a little makeup trick to find out the numbers. She finds out it's the 1701, the number of the Star Trek Enterprise. She opens it up and she finds a box that's labeled Zappo. And it's that word again. And I was like, what is that word? Where did that come from? She opens it up and there's a small cable inside. And she's like, wait, it's just a cable? Where's the actual product? What's going on here? And she closes it up. And she's like, I guess I'll just have to take this to my friend and figure out what's going on. And her friend is, oh, I'm gonna mess up his name. Zavoboda? Sabota. We'll just call him Sabota. I was calling him Martin earlier because Sabota's his last name, but like that's the only name that he's referenced as throughout the rest of this book so far. So Sabota it is. She takes the cable to him and he's like, have you had sex yet? And she's like, no. He's like, well, tell me when you do. I want to know if that condom works. Ha. It's just like, that's creepy. But she hands him a box and she says, I need to know what this is. And he's like, you know, I've been hearing a lot of rumors about you being involved in like explosions and murder. Is any of that true? And she's like, they're all rumors. He's like, is everything okay? She's like, not really. And he's like, would you like to stay at my place? And he's like, no, I got a place. And he's like, okay. So I'm going to look over this cable for you. And she's like, yeah. She pulls out her little gizmo thing. And she says, so it'll be 2,000 slugs, right? And he's like, what? And she's like, 2,000 slugs. You know, that's what we normally charge each other. And he's like, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this because you're in a tight spot. You're my friend, and I like having you around. And she's like, oh. Sabota's like incredibly pissed off. He's like offended that she thought that he would only do this for money. He's like, I thought we were friends. And she's like, we are. He's like, okay. I'm doing this because I'm your friend. She says, okay, you work on that. I have some other things I need to do. And she goes into the city square, and she puts her gizmo in the middle of the city square, and she activates it. She turns it on. She turns on the GPS. And then she goes to a cafe and she sits and she waits and she orders her disgusting food and she's eating her food and looking at the general area where the gizmo was left. And as she's eating, Rudy shows up. And Rudy sits right next to her and says, oh, thought that would work, did you? She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, well, I tracked you here. I figured that you would be watching that area from afar, and I figured this would be the best place. And he's like, what's going on? And she's like, nothing is going on. And he's like, I know you had something to do with those explosions. I know you have something to do with those murders. What is going on? And she says, nothing. Nothing at all is going on. I have no idea what you... And she stops. And she looks. There's the Hispanic guy with the knife, and he is walking around the certain area where the gizmo is. Well, she's not happy. She's like, that's the guy that killed the people. How does he know where my gizmo is? And Rudy says, I don't know. And he's like, come on. The only people that could do that are cops. I know that cops often give out tips for bribes. What's going on here, Rudy? He's like, I have no idea what's going on. I swear to you. And she says, I have to get out of here. And Rudy runs after the Mexican, and she runs away and goes to her little hiding place. She's checking headlines to see if Rudy actually caught him. It turns out that he didn't, but while she's checking out headlines, she gets a message from Jin, who was the guy who had rented the hotel room that she had gone in and stole the cable from. And he's like, I heard about all of the scuffling and everything, and I just want to say thank you so much for bringing it to my attention. Can we please meet? And see, this is where I would become like the absolute worst person in this type of situation. I would be dead in a heartbeat because I believe him and Jazz does not. So I would be dead in a heartbeat in these situations. She says, fine, meet me at 8 a.m. at my father's welding place. Do not show up past 8:05. I will be gone. And he says, thank you. I also forgot to mention that she had, while she was checking the headlines and everything, she had like 15 different messages from her father begging her to tell him what's going on, and she doesn't. It's kind of sad. But the next chapter starts out the next day, with Jazz sitting in her father's welding shop at 5 a.m. And she is waiting for 8 a.m. to get there so that she can confront Jin. 8 a.m. gets there, and Jin is right on time. And Jin immediately starts apologizing. She's like, you shouldn't apologize to me. You should apologize to the family of the people who are dead. And he's like, no, I really need to apologize to you. She's like, what are you talking about? And then the Mexican shows up. And she's like, you son of a bitch! It turns out that he was like, no, you don't understand. If I didn't tell them where you were, they were going to kill me. It was you or me. And I chose me because, I'm me, and I don't want me to die. Jazz has a flamethrower. She points it at the Mexican. The Mexican lunges at her with the knife again. She throws something against the wall, and this nozzle on a pipe pops off. And the two guys are like, what's going on here? And she jumps all the way up to the ceiling, and she uses a flamethrower on the two guys. And they're like, we don't understand what's going on. And what she was doing when she threw it at the nozzle was she was filling the room with neon. And eventually the two guys are and they pass out. She calls Rudy to come pick them up, but she can't get away, and Rudy actually takes all three of them back to his office. Because it turns out that there's not actually a jail on Artemis. With all this stuff going on, you would really hope that there would be a jail. And so you have the Mexican off in his own little area, and you have Jin and Jazz handcuffed to chairs in front of his desk. And they're being a little annoying. They're just being like, let us go. And Rudy would just pick up a little squirt bottle like you do with a cat, and he would squirt them. And they'd be like, okay. And they're like, we didn't do anything. Yep, all right. Oh. And while they're doing all of this, Queen Ngugi, the Queen of Artemis, walks in, and she's like, let Jazz go. And Rudy's like, why? She's just as implicit in this as the other two. And she says, you don't have to ask questions, just let Jazz go. And Rudy's like, I don't understand. Why do you want her to be free so badly? And the Queen is like, nope, not answering that question. You just let her go. And Rudy has to let her go. Now, normally, Jazz would go back to her hiding place, but she made a very specific deal. And today is Tuesday, so after she is let go by Rudy, she goes back to Hartnell's. And she has the drink that she agreed to have with Dale. Dale sits down next to her, and he says, what's going on? She's like, I don't want to tell you. He says, why did you need all that money? This isn't your kind of move. This is the move of someone who is desperate. And she rattles off like a specific amount of money. And he's like, why do you need that amount of money? And she's like, no, you don't get that answer. And I was like, I want that answer. You haven't told us yet either. Dale is like, fine, I won't ask you anymore. We still have 3.5 hours to sit here and drink. And she's like, I hate you too, buddy. And she asks him about Tyler, and Dale says, Tyler's fine. And then she gets a notification on her gizmo from Sabota. Yeah, closer? No? She gets a notification on her gizmo from Sabota, and he's like, this thing that you brought me is amazing. I can't wait to show you what it does. Can you come over as soon as possible? And she says, I can't, no, baby. We're not having sex right now. And he's like, what are you talking about? No, I just want to show you the cable. Oh, you're doing that thing where you're trying to see if I'm coerced into saying this or not. I'm not coerced. But if I were to be coerced, my code word would be dolphin. And she's like, oh, okay, cool, gotcha. I'll see you tomorrow morning. She's like, cool. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow morning shows up. She goes over to Sabota's place, and Sabota brings out the cable, and he's like, I cut into it. She's like, I didn't tell you could cut into it. He's like, I cut into it anyways. And he's like, this thing is amazing. And she's like, what is it? What does it hold? And he's like, no, it doesn't hold anything. It's just the actual cable. I don't understand. This cable has absolutely zero attenuation. What does that mean? And he says, well, cables often have different points because they need to collect the data and send them off to other cables because they can only send data so far because attenuation would corrupt that data. This cable that you've brought me has zero attenuation. It could go on for miles and not lose data. And she's like, what does that mean? He's like, this is the most amazing cable ever built in human history. She says, so if someone were to bring that up, he's like, that would make them billions. And she's like, oh, I think I get what's going on here. I think I know what's going on. And Sabota's like, I think I know too. Where did you find this? She says, I can't tell you that. I'm gonna take it and leave. He's like, no. But she takes the cable away from him and she goes to talk with Queen Nuki. Not the Googie. The Queen of Artemis again. I don't know how to say her. She goes to visit with her and she sits down. They're talking and she's like, let me give you a little hypothetical here. Let's say that you are in the communications business and they find out a way to transfer data faster than everyone else. The Queen's like, well, there are many ways to transfer data. There's Ethernet, there's cable. She says, well, let's say that you've built something that has made it even better. How much money would you say that would bring in? She's like, oh, probably in the trillion. Jez is like, well, shit. I'm sorry, man. Queen's like, it's fine. I know your colorful language. Jez says, let's say that someone built this cable and it was super duper good at what it does, but it could only be built in low gravity situations. Where would you say that this cable should be built? On a satellite station orbiting Earth or at Artemis? The Queen says, I would say Artemis, of course. We have skilled workers, we have low gravity, it's a perfect place to build that sort of thing. And Jess says, I noticed something. You didn't mention radio or TV waves, antennas, or anything like, well, yeah, why would I? We were talking about fiber optics. She's like, yeah, but I didn't mention fiber optics yet. And the Queen was like, I'm sure that you did. And she says, no, I didn't. It's your game. And she pulls out a knife. And the Queen pulls out a gun. And she says, all right, you caught me. And that's how the section ends. And it's like, I need more. What the hell? I've left you on another massive cliffhanger. Hooray! You'll have to come back next video to figure out what happens. Or read on. The only thing that I'm noticing in this section right now is that it's lacking in letters, which is fine. Normally that would bug me because I hate it when you have a certain format and then you just stop doing that format. I have just glanced ahead to figure out where I'm going to stop in the next video, and seeing that the letters return, it was just odd that it wasn't here for this section. If you like what I'm doing, go ahead and click the subscribe button. If you like this video specifically, go ahead and click that like button, and go ahead and leave a comment letting me know what's the biggest cliffhanger that you've ever been left on. I've been Elliot the Purple Earth Doofus. This has been Buddy Reeves reminding you to watch your pajama radius, and I will see you all in the next chapters of Artemis by Andy Weir. Doodles!